Hey there, Toonami faithful, and welcome back aboard Toonami Absolution, where we talk about the shows that made us us and made you you. Once again, we are your hosts. My name is Alex.
I'm Sam.
And I'm John. Yes, we're starting Cowboy Bebop. Sam, your choice.
Yeah, Cowboy Bebop's my favorite anime to date. It's just gorgeously produced by Sunrise, who's done all the Gundam stuff, and you can see some of those sensibilities, especially in this first episode that we're gonna watch. Spike Spiegel. It's one of those few animes where I can, watch it in English or Japanese just fine. Steve Bloom does a great job as Spike Spiegel. It's probably the first thing I ever heard, at least consciously, heard Steve Bloom do before he went on to become Tom for Toonami and that sort of thing. Yeah, it's also like just a handful. It's like just over 2 dozen episodes in a movie. It just felt like a really, when I think of anime on Toonami, it's one of those shows that kind of stands out as my gateway into the medium, so to speak.
Yeah, it's a classic for good reason. I think it's one of those films you can't really argue, one of those shows you can't really argue against. Important position in history as well, because this was shown on the first episode of Adult Swim. These two episodes
Yeah.
were the first.
It's always interesting going back to a show like Cowboy Bebop because I haven't done a full watch through of Cowboy Bebop in a hot minute, and it it's kind of amazing exactly how good it is, and in the same way that like Ghibli will never be able to escape the albatross of Spirited Away, Watanabe will never escape the albatross of Cowboy Bebop because like Lazarus is not doing as well as Cowboy Bebop. Like Samurai Champloo is not doing as well as Cowboy Bebop. When in reality, if those came out of other creators, they would be the best thing those creators made.
Yeah,
Yeah, Shampoo is probably as close as it gets, right?
Yeah.
man, Lazarus has been yeah, Lazarus get is so unfair. Poor Lazarus. It's got a lot of good comments. It's just not Bebop, and
Yeah.
unfortunately, what people want is more Bebop. But having more Bebop kind of undermines the entire point of what makes Bebop so special.
Yeah, it's an interesting moment in this first episode of Bebop that I kind of remembered, revisiting it, especially given how Bebop ends, where Spike kind of accepts his fate for a second there in the cockpit. And it's like, oh, okay. Knowing the full breadth of the story at this point, it's like, all right, okay. But it's beautiful, man. Like, let's talk about this first episode and how it's basically like a space western romp.
I could say like that cold open is probably one of the best cold opens. I would argue in just media history, not even just anime history, how it so quickly establishes a tone, a sense of place, a sense of character, just straight away just pulls you in what 20 seconds. Like it
Yeah.
establishes so much in that short time without feeling like overbearing. It's so amazingly done.
I think the one of the things I really do want to talk about bebop because I'm a resident music nerd is the genre of bebop. Bebop is a very specifically American genre of music. It comes out of the jazz movements that really be like a lot of jazz movements that really began in the 1940s, 30s and 40s. It moves from like Kansas into New York where bebop itself really gets established. I actually a while ago had the privilege of getting to see the first episode produced with a live band in New York. It is probably one of my favorite memories of the show, and the music is so integral to the show that it's you got to talk about it. And you got to talk about the history of bebop too, especially in relation to the show, because the history of bebop is a history of rebellious music that was going against the grain of what existed before it. And a lot like how Cowboy Bebop does the same thing.
Yoko Kanno, right?
Yeah.
Yep, Yoko Kanno.
Well,
She
you've
was
got to
in New York. She liked honey mustard. I remember that.
you've got to probably the most important thing about this is that Kano was brought onto this project so early. The only thing she had was basically Spike, some early sketches of Spike. They didn't have a name yet. They didn't have like any story yet. Just they'd worked with her on Macross Plus. Said she was great. Said she was weird. And yeah, and so she was told to go make music, and she came back with more songs than they could ever use. And so she hadn't, when she soundtracked these episodes, she hadn't seen them. There wasn't a story yet, which is amazing to think about how well it all comes together. Of course, we should also mention Kano is the inspiration for Edward because of her habit of rolling on the floor. And she didn't realize that until much, much later.
And I just think it's interesting that a lot of the music was actually produced in New York. Like a
Yes.
lot of bebop artists from New York did a lot of the work on the music that goes into Cowboy Bebop, which I think is really interesting for a show that originally came out in 1998.
Do we want to talk about Tank?
Ah,
Yes, one of the best songs.
ah,
It's just so good. Like it's one of those things. It's so it just works. I think that's an important thing to about Bebop. We talk about Bebop's music, but Bebop's music just works. It's something that's very hard to pull off. In that Bebop is very. It's hard to imagine Bebop being made, if that makes sense,
Yeah.
because everything comes together so well. You could. It has almost a natural feel. You like when you see a cliff edge and you go, "Wow, that was made by nature." Like it just feels so perfect. Like it couldn't be any other way.
Yeah. Yeah. Everything just clicks. It is the perfect alchemy of anime. And I love it. Yeah, and it's something that, a bad translation or a bad dub could have easily happened and derailed it for localized audiences like us. But somehow the stars align for that too,
yeah.
because it's still so good in English voice dub.
That was great. I will say though, in the second episode that we are going to be talking about when we get Ein, the guys in the truck, the guys looking for Ein, have both the best lines in the episode and also the worst recorded lines in the episode. So I
Yeah,
do have to
the
throw that.
guy at the back of the truck was clearly on the phone.
He's
Yeah.
clearly on the phone, and then you have the one guy being like, "Unleash the dog whistle." Like,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
like everybody's talked about how perfect Cowboy Bebop is, and there are a lot of reasons why people have talked about how perfect Cowboy Bebop is. Like it is hard to talk about it in any other way than acknowledging it for its cultural prominence. And honest, it is probably one of the main reasons why anime got the foothold that it did in America.
Oh, totally. Can I just for a second cycle back to the music a brief moment? Because I think it's really important to put the English language vocalist, Steve Conte, has a really great interview with a magazine called Dot and Line, where he sort of explains how the music was made. And it was basically, Kano came to him and said, "This is a new series they're making called Cowboy Bebop. And what they're going to do is they're going to animate to our music instead of the other way around. They make the film and they get a composer later to look at the film and score the film, what's already made. The visuals are already there. But this is going to be done the opposite way. They're going to be inspired by the way we make the music to create the visuals." And he's like, "Okay."
He also did the ending for Wolf's Rain, didn't he?
Yes, he talks about a lot. Kano just really likes him apparently but then he literally mentioned like I recorded these songs. Then under a year later, Kano came back and said, "Here's some more." So like all of that stuff with him was recorded in 2 trips.
Nice. Yeah.
And again, this is like a couple of years before the anime came out.
Mm.
So you want to know how ahead of somehow this is the perfect soundtrack. Yet Kano hadn't seen it. Kano had no idea what this was going to be put on. She just saw this ruffly man and was like, "Okay."
Yeah.
It's interesting. I don't know what you know about Conti, but he's actually he was a guitarist for the New York Dolls in the 1970s, which was one of the first beginnings of the punk scene in New York. Like they performed like Velvet Underground, MC5, like they were a major foundation of punk rock in New York. So I think it's cool to me how much that overlap happens.
And it's really funny if you hear him in interviews because he didn't really have any idea what anime was and still really doesn't. He gets what bebop is and he's like, "I understand it's like really important. I don't fully get it. Why suddenly all these people love me?"
Yeah.
But it's also the thing I want to bring up with the music is that bebop has a really good soundtrack, but it also makes amazing use of silence.
It does. And like
Like,
ambient noise. Like,
oh
yeah.
yeah, like that bar scene at the very start, they come in, it's very quiet, then the guns go off, and it feels like a punch. Same
Yeah.
in the ship. You have that quiet moment at the end where they're both flying in the ship, and then that's that loud ringing gunshot. It's so just. I think that's the mark of a really good soundtrack. That it doesn't need to be in your face constantly. It's so good. We're gonna let it sit. We don't
Yeah.
need to have it constantly there to remind you what the emotion is. You'll know what it is from watching.
Well, especially compared to some of the stuff we've watched, like Saban Entertainment's policy was if you fill an episode every second of an episode with music, that's more music that could potentially be licensed.
Yeah.
Which is why those Dragon Ball Z episodes have music ever like Falconer music wall to wall, whereas like Cowboy Bebop knows when to dial up, when to just cruise, especially with the case of that first episode where they're in space and everything, and you just hear like the space cruising noise and everything. And yeah, there's a beauty in the silence there and an effect, like you were saying, an effectiveness to the silence.
Yeah, and I also point out this specifically is Saban also said they did that because American children don't have any attention span. Hey, that's not a new complaint about children. Children, but that was their point. I think we got really lucky that Bebop was at that level where it got a budget to be dubbed, but it was also just not touched by any of the usual hands, so they were able to just do a very straight adaptation. Between these two episodes, very few things are changed. There are bits of dialogue changes, but most of those are acceptable cultural flips to make the sentences make more sense. The only big change between these two episodes is the pricing for the dog. They're all reduced quite heavily in the American dub when they're higher in Japan, which I presume is because Wulong isn't being pinned to yen, it's being pinned to dollars.
Hmm. I wonder if part of that quality, now that I think about it, is the fact that it was the distribution license was handled by Bandai Namco.
Yeah,
Probably.
Uh,
probably.
to keep that.
Bandai are big on putting their foot down on things.
Yeah, which in the case of Cowboy Bebop, I certainly appreciate. Code
Oh,
Vein 2, maybe not as much,
yeah,
but
it worked here.
Code Vein 2 is fine.
I do I do want to give a little tiny shout out for one thing in the instrumentation that I really like is that, and I don't know if it's being done purposefully or if it's just like a quirk of the music, but it does feel like the characters themselves don't have real leitmotifs, but it does feel like a lot of their scenes get associated with very specific sounds. It's
Yeah.
also, I do want to throw this out here. I think it's one of the few anime I know that has a use of like the bongo drums,
Yeah.
which is amazing. And they use them so well and so beautifully done to indicate motion. So I just needed to throw that out there. Shout out to the bongos.
Yeah.
It's this first episodes are full of so many just really nice flourishes that you can be very anal about these episodes about how there's so many clever little details they do. Like I really love Bebop's world building. Like having Spike shown to be poor by the beef and pepper scene. It's such a small detail. They could have just said, "Oh, we're broke," but they first show you that they're broke by showing that we don't have any beef. You know,
Yeah.
we get the foreshadow of the reveal of the lady's not being pregnant via her sipping beer earlier on, which in the moment you don't think about it. You think, "Oh, okay, she's just it's weird, but it's not that weird." And then
Yeah.
you get to the end, it's like, "Oh, that makes perfect sense." It's
Yeah.
just so many great little touches. I really want to touch on Bebop's world building as well because I love how it has this very lived-in technology. It's futuristic, but it hasn't. I always see Bebop is sort of a proponent of the end of history in that humanity's technology has progressed, but society really hasn't. There is that end point. Things are still, the poor are still poor and living on the streets, and they're just in space now. The rich are still living it up in casinos, they're just in space now. It gives the world a relatability.
Well, and it's the show's set less than 100 years from the present when there's a lot of the premise behind it is like in the background. We don't really know what happened to Earth. We don't really know how we got to this point where so much of the solar system's colonized. It's just texture. Um, and yeah, like I was saying earlier, it's like a space western, there's like a saloon sequence. But I think the premise gives the chance for every colony or whatever to have its own distinct kind of culture and neighborhood evoking classic Earth cultures. We kind of get a bit more of that, I think, in the movie where like everything's on Mars and there's like different neighborhoods based on different cultures on Mars. But yeah, it's a sci-fi story where the science fiction elements are really just a backdrop. you could tell the story just as effectively if that last chase at the end of the first episode was on horses or in cars, really.
I was actually bring this up. One of my favorite moments from the first episode is that when they're coming out of the gates for the first time, what's the first thing you hear? You hear the automated voice, depending if you're in Japan or America, either saying to stand behind the line and go to the toll booth or wait for a booth to become available. It's in that one line you have suddenly made this world feel so much more resonant and alive because yeah, it's like, oh, there are space gates, but they are treated like public transit. They are something you're paying for. It just immediately you've established this world so well, and it's just such a throwaway line. You can actually miss it because Spike talks over part of it. But it's
And
such a beautiful decision.
and in the second episode with the space gates, when they're coming into the next round, you hear that the information is being given also in Mandarin,
Hmm.
which I really like because they're layering over each other, and you hear the Mandarin going out, and it's very clearly a separate language, and the where they're landing very clearly has influences from China. So it's really cool. It's a very
Oh,
interesting backdrop.
Yeah,
yeah,
and
Wulongs, yeah.
you can and you can totally see there's all these characters who seem to be living their own lives, and we sort of get I the gamblers we see in the two bars in the first episode are a really nice touch because they're talking about the past, even though we never see that past. It's not relevant, but it reminds you this is a world that exists outside of that. The guy with the bird doing his fortune telling. There are different worlds out here. I even like the fact that we get the end of the episode of Dean. We get to see the guy paying off his debt at the pet store, which is such a really good way to sort of hammer the audience back home to, hey, Spike's actions have consequences. Even if Spike isn't there to endure them, what he's doing ripples outwards. And that's going to play a very big role later on. And it's kind of the thesis statement of the entire show. But they show it here in a way that just gently reminds you, remember, things are going to happen based on what people have done.
Yeah,
Nothing
yeah.
happens in a vacuum, and I think that's really cool. Like I love this particular era of anime. I have a very soft spot for this particular era of anime because this is like we're mentioning sci-fi westerns. Like Trigun is coming out around this time too. Like Outlaw Star is going to become a thing. Like as we progress, like as we progress on Toonami, the sci-fi western is going to be a cornerstone of it, and that all goes back to Bebop. And
Yeah,
let's face it, we all love a good western.
we do. I also think all three shows that you mentioned, Bebop, Trigun, and Outlaw Star, are also all dubbed, at least in America, by animes, which kind of had a better fidelity than, we were fresh off doing the first season of ish of Sailor Moon, which, as we pointed out, maybe didn't have the most faithful edit slash
Yeah.
dub. So to come into this, I mean, that was kind of part of the thesis or was part of the motivation behind this choice. One, because I just love Cowboy Bebop. Two, it's like let's get something that's a little more truer to the actual material.
It's kind of like Spirited Away, how we talked about that last week. In so that was one of the first products to be presented as itself. It was presented as a Japan. It wasn't presented as a Japanese movie. It was presented as this is really good. It's
Yeah.
from Japan. That's not relevant to our conversation. Same with Bebop. Bebop was presented as this is a really good show. Spike is this amazing character, and you're going to want to enjoy it just because of what it is. It's not
Yeah.
special because of where it's from. It's a very good international film and should be appreciated as one.
Yeah. We're just gonna, sit back, enjoy the ride. There's Spike, there's Jet Black. And I guess by the second episode there's Ein. Um, have
Space
fun.
Whales exists.
Yeah.
The Data Dog.
Oh,
The
Space
date,
Whales.
yeah.
The data. My favorite thing in that episode is how the scientist's car has a harpoon built in, which
Yeah,
I've always kind of just wondered what the situation that was there for. I
for
presume.
Corgi.
Yes, the famous harpoonable corgis. As we've all read Moby Dick.
Only Welsh corgis though.
Only Welsh Corgis specifically.
The
They
the, the
are
non the
dangerous.
non-Welsh ones are too clever. They'll dodge.
Yeah, they didn't have that. They didn't drink that Cardiff water. But the uh what do we so we've spent a lot of time talking about like kind of episode one. What do we think about like episode two and Hakeem and is this the first time we get the big shot kind of like ads on
It is the
Oh,
first time we get Big Shot. I
I
love
love
Big
Big
Shot.
Shot. It's like the most awful thing in the world, and I love it because of that. is again, we talk about these little flourishes of like that show the grander world. Big Shot is that. It's like not only is bounty hunting a profession in this world, it's treated flippantly.
Yeah.
Like
Yep.
it's cheesy, it's disgusting, it's dirty. It's not a profession. This is not like this isn't like sort of the modern John Wick. Bounty hunters aren't suave professionals. They're idiots like Spike and these guys.
This is Dog the Bounty Hunter.
Yeah,
This is what it is. Like it's so fun to, and I think that it contributes because they mentioned that there are 300,000 bounty hunters in the galaxy. Like that is a thing that they specifically mentioned. And it kind of makes you wonder what the population is that they would need 300,000 bounty hunters. Like how competitive is like it makes it feel a lot more like the universe itself is dangerous, but it's so casual about its danger.
Well, it's dangerous, and there's the idea that like it's rife with crime. We get hints that there's a wealth divide that we never fully understand. Because a lot of regular people, be it people in a saloon or people just getting by wherever, are just trying to make a living. And sometimes that leads to bounties being put on their head to the point where bounty hunting is like an infomercial, a cheaply made infomercial that's broadcast on solar system television.
yeah.
Yeah.
I think it also lays the foundations for what we're going to see at the end with Spike and Jet. It's like it pretty much gives you the idea that this is not a profession someone with options goes into. Like Spike is I one of my favorite things to 2 episodes is the guys lose both times. They never get the money. And it really hammers that home. Like this isn't like clearly something has happened and Spike has nowhere else to go. Because no one in their right mind would take this for a career if they keep failing and are clearly struggling, but could get another job. Whatever that job is.
I mean, it's like a comedy of errors. It's like Spider-Man comics where everything that can possibly go wrong for Peter Parker's personal life does. Like he can never catch a break. He does all the hard work in episode 2, but then the big shot people are like, well, he just turned himself in. And he's just like, okay, but you have a dog now. Like, okay.
Enjoy your dog.
You
Like
know,
it's also interesting too because you have to compare and contrast that with the amount of skill Spike actually has. Like Spike is not just some random dude who came off the street. Spike very clearly is extremely a skilled martial artist. He knows what he's doing. He's just in a he's just in a tenuous financial situation.
One thing I love about Spike, especially on that, is how messed up his fighting style is. He's a very skilled martial artist, but he's got a very clumsy style made up of a load of different bits. Like you see when he's fighting the guys in one of the first episodes, he's jumping over tables, he's doing grapple moves, he's doing hand signals at the wrong time. This is very clearly a man who's learnt combat through trial and error. He's not like the sort of savant like Goku. He's picked up bits and bobs and sort of meshed them into his own style.
it's always weird watching Cowboy Bebop the movie because Spike's hand-to-hand skills in that movie are like at his most like graceful and competent. like like he's basically like mimicking Bruce Lee for a lot of those fights. And to see him it's having come off that and watching like watching these first couple episodes, yeah, Spike's very competent, but he's not like he's the Indiana
Not
Jones.
beautiful.
Gosh,
Yeah, yeah.
I wonder if Spike's skills because maybe that film takes place in his head.
Yeah.
Maybe he was in a coma the whole
Just,
time.
just, just to get past that, the joke all the Bebop team have in interviews now is that if someone asks them if Spike is dead in that film, they say he's alive. If they ask if he's alive during that film, they say he's dead. They
I like
always
that.
answer with the opposite one to what they're asked. So
Yeah.
I think it's interesting watching the way the characters move because I think like in a lot of animated stuff, like it doesn't matter if it's American, Japanese, Chinese, it doesn't matter where it comes from. Sometimes walk cycles get reused or repackaged for a lot of characters. Every character in Cowboy Bebop has a distinct way that they move. Like Spike is kind of gangly, but he's also very confident in how he walks. Jet is a much bigger dude. He carries his center of gravity differently. And I think that those little touches make it so much more than what it says on the tin.
Well, there's
Yeah.
so much personality without them even saying anything.
Yeah.
And that's something that only extends once we introduce Faye Valentine and Radical Edward. Especially Radical Edward. But the just like this like noodle person. But the uh yeah, no, it's I just love I there is something special. We kind of it kind of goes to the backseat as the cast grows, but there is just something about the partnership between Spike and Jet Black that's just so great.
And I think part of that for me is this is a very rare example of working class characters who are written as working class characters. It annoys me to hell when you'll see this a lot. Is like you have a working class character, they're being clearly being played by a middle class person and don't
Yeah.
get it. Spike is coded working class, and you can tell the writers understood what that means. How they approach food, how they approach their living situation. It's very clearly these are two people who are struggling, but in a very they're not sort of like the chipper, oh governor, I'll get off the streets one day, kind of Oliver Twist, terrible stage school work guys. These are characters who you can imagine meeting these guys sort of at a job center. You can imagine meeting them at a benefits office. They're just two guys trying to pull through, and they
Yeah.
pull that off really well. I think it's a rare example, so I like to
They're just
bring it
trying to
up.
get their GED.
Yeah,
Yeah.
like these feel like people I've met, which is amazing considering this show is set hundreds of years into the future.
Well, like it's
Was
20.
set hundreds of years into the future, probably last Tuesday. Um, so we're coming to the end. We mentioned this. This was one of the first Adult Swim shows. It was shown on the first broadcast of Adult Swim, uh,
Which yeah.
which is very impressive. I just want to, but like I did watch that entire first night.
Mhm.
It's a weird lineup. It's home movies, The Brack Show, Harvey Birdman, Sea Lab, Space Ghost, including the Macho Man Randy Savage episode. Then this.
Yeah.
It's like what a weird twofer you get there. A bit of Space Ghost, a bit of Macho Man, then Bebop.
Was Bebop like officially branded as part of Midnight Run, or was
No,
Midnight
this
Run
was
not a thing
just
yet?
Adult Swim. This is back when it was still the actual swimming bumpers. Where the Adult
Okay.
No
Swim.
kids in the pool.
Yep,
Yeah.
that first night is really funny because they have a couple of adverts which basically are trying to explain the concept of Adult Swim to you, but they keep re-stressing no kids under 17. That's new, but no kids under 17. They keep doing that. And one of my weirdest things about this first night is that the ratings bug at the top remains on screen the entire time. It doesn't fade out and it's not semi-transparent. It's block. So, which is
Jeez.
a deliberate attempt, I think, to make sure people know that this is something new we're doing. It's very annoying during Bebop because it's A, distracting as hell, and B, cuts off several important moments. When Ein grabs Spike's face, you can't see it because they're under the buck.
Yeah.
And you can also tell it's cheap because it runs the same three ads basically on loop, including one about a child's parents worrying that he's too attracted to the green M&M, which that killed the mood. I'm going to be brutally honest with you. And an advert telling
Man,
you
they
to
had stuff about Tucker Carlson that early.
right. I thought it was an internet meme, but no, it's a whole advert about him finding the green M&M too attractive, and apparently the dad's like, "Well, if I was a boy, I'd also be." It's like, do not need to think about this, Toonami.
Oh
And the other
man,
ad you get a lot is an ad to join the Navy with a new metal soundtrack, which
Oh, yeah, I think I remember. It would have been Godsmack at the time, wouldn't it?
I couldn't recognize the band, so I'm glad you could.
that would be Godsmack.
I think that really tells you who they thought Adult Swim was aimed at. It's aimed at people who are sexually attracted to candy bars and people who need a job.
Yeah, well, I mean, I remember the Navy commercial in particular because that dominated.
It
Even
did.
Cartoon Network, it's like we're gonna play this Godsmack scored recruitment video.
Like across this 5 hour tape, I think I heard that like that segment at least 13 times. It's
Yeah,
burned into my brain. But
it's
I think
military money.
the funniest thing about to me about this is you get Bebop coming off, which yeah, today we revere it. It's the show of shows. After this, it went to a segment called Toonhead's Late Night Black and White, where it was just a random narrator talking about old Looney Tunes and Popeye shorts. It's
Yeah.
just so amazing how this show that was such a big deal and has become this amazing, such a big show, really felt like it was treated with zero gravitas. Again, in the promos, it was put against Brack Show and Home Movies. Like, yes, one of the shows we got. Yeah, this is our late night block. And it's so weird now because I think I could go to any anime space and be like Cowboy Bebop and get at least 90% of the room gushing over it.
Oh yeah, yeah.
But yeah, it was just a show for Adult Swim. It was their first action show, but that was it.
What a time. Like our
Yeah.
we should be getting into some final thoughts though.
We got 12 weeks, 12 more weeks of this, to party.
Yeah, I'm gonna worry. I'm gonna run out of ways to say this is very good
Yeah.
by the end because yeah, this is I would argue one of the solidest one-twos for a setup you've got in anime. It does such a good job of laying every foundation you could want, foreshadowing everything you could want, and just fun. It's just a fun. This is just a show that's going to be really hard, I think, for me to do as a podcast because I'm just going to want to stop making notes and just watch the damn thing because
Yeah.
it's
Well, I'll
just
just watch it multiple times. It's always worked for
yeah,
me.
it just pulls you in. It's just still as good as it was when I was 15, 16. It's still as good as it was when I was in my 20s, and it's still as good now.
Yeah.
How about you, Sam? Final thoughts?
I mean, we're off to the races. It's, we've introduced the Bebop and its initial crew, and within the next couple episodes, we're going to fill that out.
My final thought is a little personal. Cowboy Bebop always has had a special place in my heart. I have like I mentioned that concert earlier on. That concert is actually where I proposed to my late fiance. I have a lot of big feelings about Cowboy Bebop. It is going to be one of my favorites forever, and for multiple reasons. But I will always remember the night of that concert. Getting to meet Yoko Kanno was very cool. She's a very weird little lady. Getting to see it played with a big orchestra was great, and getting to propose to someone who I loved very, very much was a really great night. Cowboy Bebop is it is impossible to really capture how great Cowboy Bebop is, and that's why we got to keep rewatching it together so we can keep talking about it. But that does mean it is time to disembark at your local space gate. It is time to leave Toonami Absolution, and we want to thank you again for talking about the shows that made us us and the shows that made you you. Once again, we are your hosts. My name is Alex,
I'm Sam.
And I'm John.
and we'll see you next time. Bang.